8 individuals and 7 entities are listed. Well, let's talk now to John Blaxland, who's Professor of International Security and Intelligence Studies at the University of Australia in Canberra. John Blaxland, thank you very much. Just tell us what Wagner is doing, first of all, in Africa. We hear a lot about what it's doing in Ukraine, not so much about Africa, but it's really quite significant, isn't it?
Yes, it is significant, and it really relates to its roots and its origin. The nature of this organisation derived from Russian special forces, Spetsnaz and GRU, the military intelligence. Its roots are in that space. It is involved in grey zone operations. It's involved in sabotage. It's involved in extrajudicial killings and blackmail, and throwing money around to persuade influential figures, political figures, that their cause is best, marginalising the French, undermining the rule of law and democratic processes in countries that are already very fragile, and looking to dominate gold mines, rare earth mineral resources, and basically shore up Russia's access to these resources at a time when Russia is, of course, suffering sanctions all over the place for its war in Ukraine.
What is the advantage of using a mercenary group in a particular situation for the Kremlin?
Well, for a while there was a degree of plausible deniability. The idea of little green men was around a decade or so ago when Russia invaded Donbass and Crimea. But in Africa, we've seen this, the idea of armed militias, corporate-funded militias has been around for decades. And it's not just Russia that's been doing it, of course. The United States is famed for this in the Iraq War. But what we're seeing is the level of depravity involved and the level of direct state involvement in the Wagner group that's been really confirmed and cleared up in the last few months as the approach of Yevgeny Prigozhin and his engagement with Vladimir Putin in Russia becomes all that much more formalized and articulated. This is not just some kind of a corporate entity that happens to have military skills. It's actually part of the Russian state, so it is appropriate that it be subject to the same sanctions that apply broadly.
Right. I mean, how much say can you perceive that the Kremlin has over what Wagner does?
Yes, that's a good question, because Prigozhin is a powerful figure, but there's no question he's got a degree of latitude to what he can do in Africa. But there's also no question, in my view, and most pundits would agree on this, so I'm fairly confident, that he is acting with clear mandate from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, and he's operating in a way that is consistent with the atrocities that we've seen carried out in Ukraine by Wagner operatives. So this is an odious body. It is one that is now being subject to criminal sanctions internationally, and that puts it in a really important category when it comes to applying international legal principles and international law enforcement powers to constrain the freedom of action of these people to purchase equipment, to purchase high-tech equipment from abroad, and to limit their freedom of action just transiting between countries. So it's very important. This is crimping their freedom of action.
Right, and you sound like you think that there will be a significant effect of these sanctions on Wagner's activities and what they find they're able to do around the world.
So it's been incremental. We've seen over the last decade more and more sanctions by the United States, the European Union, other countries like Australia and Japan as well. They are having an incremental effect. And of course, every action generates a counteraction. So we'll see where the Wagner group goes with this now. But I suspect that this is going to significantly constrain their freedom of action from here on in.
Professor John Blaxland talking to us there from Canberra. Thank you. Very interesting to talk to you.
Good to be with you.